along with me here, okay? Let's presume that Omar Khan wants Brandon Ayuk from the 49ers. I don't know that that's a safe presumption, but let's presume. From there, let's presume that Omar's got the patience and the wherewithal to wait it out a little bit. Good morning to you. Good Wednesday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports, and this is Daily Shot of Steelers. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into hockey and/or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Penguins and Pirates in the same place that you found this. Ayuk, it's hard to even know where to start because there's so many stories that swirl about him out of Santa Clara and a meeting that he had with John Lynch, the 49ers, this week that apparently didn't go very well. He followed Chase Claypool on Instagram. He offered some kind of remark about an ESPN report that the Niners and the Commanders of all teams had trade talks only for Washington to back out. And in fairness here, I don't think this is Ayuk generating a circus. This isn't some sort of A-B type situation. I'd say it's a little bit more akin to Le'Veon Bell, actually, where it's just about money. And there's nothing wrong with that. Ayuk wants to be paid like a top wide receiver. He is a top wide receiver. And within that, he doesn't have much leverage, really any leverage, because he has another year on his contract, and he's not going to pull a Lev and just disappear. So I wouldn't be fretting over this from the standpoint of drama, meaning like he's going to come to the Steelers and just wreck everything. If anything, if you're the Steelers, you'd make sure that you had him under contract, meaning long-term contract, to ensure that there'd be no such thing and that you're getting max value out of the acquisition because you're going to have to pay a price. But, put your arm on the table and just swipe it all the way across and throw everything to the floor and hear this out. What if Omar, who I think we all can agree is a pretty smart dude, is just surveying this scene and saying to himself, listen, it doesn't appear that Ayuk and the Niners are going to get anything done anytime soon. If they do, they do. Oh, well. But it doesn't appear that they will. Whereas today, as I'm talking to you guys right now, is exactly the 4-week mark from reporting date at St. Vincent College. And I'll have a chance as GM and my whole staff and the scouts and the coaches and Mike Tomlin will have a chance to watch some of these other situations play themselves out in this new offense. What if I waited and watched, for example, how Roman Wilson does? He was encouraging through the summer workouts, meaning OTAs and minicamp. Doesn't mean much in shorts, but, give it a little bit of time in Latrobe and you'll start seeing what's real and what isn't. What if you're buying time for Calvin Austin, who also turned some heads on the South Side? What if you want to lay your own eyes on how Arthur Smith will utilize his tight ends, specifically Pat Freiermuth? You've got Freiermuth stoked. Dude's like out of his mind happy right now. Do you want to pull the plug on that before it even gets going? Do you want to give it a try? Freiermuth thinks he can be a WR2. He's not going to word it like that because it sounds disrespectful to the actual WRs, but he knows what it means to be a signature pass-catching tight end. Did it at Penn State, has been utilized like that in kind of a spotty way in Pittsburgh, but is capable of it, sees himself as capable of it. Do you want to turn the lights out on that before the production even begins? And then there's the whole run first, knock people over, we're the physical ones approach that everybody on this offense is embracing. Do I think Ayuk could be a fit with that? Sure, of course I do. But there's a lot more that goes into it than just saying, I really like Ayuk as a player. There's a major commitment that's got to be made, and not just for the coming season when it's easy and there's $16 million in cap space sitting around. If you're going to sign him, you're going to sign him for a while. and you're going to sign him into his 30s. And regardless of how much or how little of that is guaranteed, and again, you can bet that a lot of it will be, it's an investment and a risk. So yeah, I still like the idea. I'd still be out of my gourd if they picked up Ayuk. I'm not going to lie to you here. But there's some stuff that's happened over the summer that let's just see, let's just see how it goes. Again, and I'll remind, I'd like to think that there's one thing that we all can agree on. It's that Omar's shown he knows what he's doing. There's no hurry right now. When we come back, J1Q. This segment of Daily Shot is brought to you by our good friends at Mike's Beer Bar. They're located on Federal Street, directly across from PNC Park. Mike has more than 500 beers on tap, including from more than 50 local breweries. Stop in and say hello. Tell Mike we sent you. Mike's Beer Bar. Today's J1Q comes from William, and coincidentally, it happens to be related to the opening segment. He asks, how is it, DK, that the Steelers always seem to fail to utilize their tight ends the way the Chiefs, the Falcons, the Chargers, the Ravens, and other teams do? Those guys are stars on their team, and I can only think of one, possibly two players on recent Steelers teams where the game plan was built for them. Why can't Pat Freiermuth be talked about the same way that Mark Andrews is in Baltimore? You got the horsepower, so why not use them? Is it really that difficult? Well, William, I got to admit, even as I was reading your question out loud here, I laughed a little bit inside at the mention of the Falcons because, that's the guy who's here now. So that's the main reason. You have to have a head coach who feels confident in deploying the tight end as a regular contributor, as a threat, a legitimate threat, not a spot threat, not a gimmick, but as a guy who just goes out for passes. That just wasn't here. I could turn this into my 5 millionth Matt Canada screed, but I won't even give Canada enough credit to suggest that he was not capable or not willing to use the tight end. I just don't think he wanted anything to do with the middle of the field. Didn't matter who it was. Did you see him throw to wide receivers in the middle of the field? No. Why? Terrified. Why was he terrified? My guess is that he just flat out didn't know what he was doing, so he figured he'd better at least avoid turnovers. I mean, we're not delusional here. You and I, we saw the same stuff out there. He also didn't know how to do anything with any element of disguise. In my conversation with Freiermuth about a month ago, that was one of the first things he brought up with me. Okay, on the record. This wasn't like, in the middle of last season or whatever, and you guys are wondering, why don't the players say anything about him? And I'm telling you on this program, they're saying it all the time. They're just not saying it on the record because he's the existing coordinator. Well, now he's not. And Freiermuth's the happiest guy in the world, and he shared with me openly. There aren't going to be any tells. That was his terminology. That's football terminology. That's basically advertising what you're about to do. This offense, his word, has no tells. Calvin Austin and others verified that for me and did so in the strongest possible language. They weren't just kissing up to the new guy. This is kind of what I was getting at in the opening segment today. You want to see this stuff play out. You want to see some of it unfold. You don't know right now. You can't know what you have in this offense, no matter how much film study you've done, how much you've coached them up, how much you might believe in what you've seen, heard, and felt of their camaraderie, coming together and everything else. Until they get out there, at least onto the grass in Latrobe, you don't know. When I think of what Freiermuth's capable of, I think, and kind of naturally to the 9-catch game that he had in Cincinnati, but I also think about how dumb the Bengals were defensively that day, kind of parting the Red Sea for Freiermuth out there in the secondary. But I'll ask you this. You. Did he look uncomfortable to you? Did he look like he didn't belong? Did he look like he was gosh wowing over all these catches and all these yards? Didn't to me. Not during and not afterward in the locker room either. This was a setting that you could tell very easily he embraced. As he put it to me last month, this is who I am. This is me finally getting a chance to be who I am. So why wasn't that used? Why weren't the Steelers doing this? I mean, it's easy, low-hanging fruit to go at Canada, but that doesn't make it wrong. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Steelers. We're going to do another one of these tomorrow.